Hi, this is Representative Larry Pittman running for re-election in the 83rd District, North Carolina House. There's been a lot of confusion and misinformation put out about the 6 amendments that we've proposed for our state constitution that you'll be considering in the November 6th election. The first one that we're considering is an amendment to protect the right of our citizens to hunt and fish and harvest wildlife. And a lot of people say, well, why bother with that? We can hunt and fish now. The problem is there are powerful and wealthy forces in this nation who have a movement going all across the nation to try to do away with hunting and fishing. So we want to make it clear in our Constitution that we will respect the right to hunt and fish and harvest wildlife. So I hope you'll support that. The second amendment that we are proposing is a constitutional amendment that strengthens the protections of victims of crime. Think about it. Somebody maybe beats you up and robs you, and the next thing you know, maybe they've been arrested. You don't know they've been let out of jail, and you run into them down the street. Or maybe you go to trial. You go and sit on a trial, and they don't let you say anything. Those things have happened. This amendment is Marsy's Law, which has already been passed in a number of states across the nation. There are 5 other states considering this in November, along with North Carolina. Oftentimes victims are killed, and so it has to be their families that go to court. But this amendment would ensure that victims or their families have the right to be a part of sentencing hearings and that sort of thing, and to be informed if the perpetrator is going to be let out of jail. That's a no-brainer. It's a very simple thing. It's happening in a number of other states, and we need to do it here as well to protect victims' rights. The third one is reducing the cap on income taxes to 7% in North Carolina. Now, I was kind of disappointed we didn't get it to 5.5 like a lot of us tried to do. You see, the reason for this is currently the state constitution caps the state income tax at 10%. Well, we've already gotten your state income taxes, personal income taxes, down to 5.499%, and in January it's going to go to 5.25. So a lot of us wanted to say the cap is 5.5 so it couldn't go back above that. Well, there were some people who weren't comfortable with that, so they insisted on making it 7%. And that's what we had to settle for in the legislature. And even though I wish we were setting it lower, let's set it at the 7%. That's better than 10%. And that way, if the Democrats get in charge again, they can't raise it above the 7%. The fourth of these amendments that we're offering to the people this year is a constitutional amendment requiring voter ID. When we had voter ID in 2014 during the election, and people were saying that the voter ID bill was about suppressing the vote of minorities. Well, in 2014 we had a record turnout of minorities with the voter ID law in place, but the courts still threw it out. So what we're doing with this amendment, we're asking the people of this state to authorize us, by putting it into our state constitution, to enact a new voter ID law. And if you'll just pass this in November, I know most of the people in the state want voter ID to protect the integrity of our elections. Give us this amendment in the state constitution and we'll come back with a law next year to do that. Then the last two that have been a bit controversial, and you've probably seen ads saying that the former governors, including Republican former governors, don't want us to pass these two, and some are saying, nix all 6. They're trying to use the former governor's objection to this to say, don't vote for any of the amendments. Well, that's not what the former governors have said. They oppose these two because they think we're just picking on the current governor. That might be a motivation of some. I'm not going to deny that. But I urge you to vote for these 2 amendments. One that would provide for a new way of appointing judges when there are vacancies. When a judge dies or retires or is removed from office, currently the governor gets to appoint pretty much whomever he wants. Historically, North Carolinians have been leery of having one person have that much power. So this amendment is about getting your legislature involved, which is closer to the people. We would have a commission that would be appointed that would be a bipartisan commission that would submit names for a replacement for a judge. And we would narrow that down to 2, and the governor would appoint one of those 2. It's just more in line with the historical stance of North Carolinians. I mean, we didn't even give the governor veto for a long time. We were the last state to do that because we didn't want one person to be that powerful. And so that's my motivation for this amendment, is to get your legislators involved in the process and not let any one person, I don't care if it's a Republican or a Democrat governor, should not have that much power. So we want to change that. The last one is similar. It's about our state Board of Elections and Ethics Enforcement. And what we want to do, we've tried having a 9-member board. It's supposed to be 4 Democrats and 4 Republicans with 1 unaffiliated. Well, the governor gets to appoint that commission, or has in the past. So here again is a time where we don't want one person having that much power. So what we're proposing in this amendment is to have the legislature appoint an 8-member board that would be 4 Democrats and 4 Republicans. Whoever the Speaker of the House and the President Pro Tem of the Senate are would have 2 appointees. The minority leader in each chamber, the House and the Senate, would have 2 appointees each. And so obviously if Republicans are in charge, the minority leader is going to be Democrat. If the Democrats are in charge, the minority leader will be Republican. And so it's fair to both parties. And we would appoint these 8. And much of the significance to this is if you have a 9-member board, you can usually get 5 to beat the 4 every time when they vote on things. When you have 8, they have to work very closely together and give very serious thought to any changes that they might make. And, you know, it's a little harder to get a majority out of 8 than it is to get a majority out of 9. So we just feel that that's more fair to both Republicans and Democrats and a much better way to handle the work that that commission or that board does. And so I'm asking you please to support these 6 amendments. They are in line with historical North Carolina values. And I think this is what we need to do. So I ask you to vote for these 6 amendments. Thank you.
Paid for by Committee to Elect Larry Pittman.